You've heard it before. Losing weight and treating food as medicine is the best thing you can do to care for your health. But does that mean you're doomed to a life of dieting and eating foods you don't like just because they're good for you? Is there another way? We're sitting down with an expert on intuitive eating today on Across the Fence. Hello, Vermont. If you have lose 10 pounds on your list of resolutions for 2026, you're probably not alone. And if you have lose 10 pounds on your list every year, you're probably not alone either. Americans do a lot of yo-yo dieting, gaining and losing the same weight over and over again, something called weight cycling in the dietetics literature. Is it healthy? Why do we do it? And could our relationship with food and health look different? Those are all great questions for my guest today. Emily Piazza is a registered dietitian nutritionist and a certified intuitive eating counselor who is in private practice and is taught in the nutrition and food sciences department at UVM. Intuitive eating is one of those topics that can seem, sorry for lack of a better word, a little woo-woo. So I'm really pleased that you can join me today to give us, talk to us about the evidence behind intuitive eating and what it looks like to practice this approach. So Emily, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really glad to have you here. I think this was something that when I was first introduced to the idea of intuitive eating, it runs so counter to a lot of how we've been taught to think about food. So I know a lot of our conversation to do today is going to come down a lot to what do we think? How do we think, and can we change the way we think? So let's get started with what is intuitive eating? And then I'm going to throw you a second section. Great. What does it have to do with the idea of weight inclusivity? Another new term.
Great. Yeah, so intuitive eating really is a non-diet approach to eating. And I think there is that misnomer that it is kind of like woo-woo and it's a free-for-all.
Right, you can do whatever you want, donuts, yay, yes.
And it's not. It's really an opportunity to tune into your body and what your body needs. We focus on those internal cues and pleasure and satisfaction rather than relying on external cues or rules or counting or numbers or measuring things. So,
like lose 10 pounds.
Yeah. We really get to focus on our well-being and our health separate from weight. And so this is where it really does mesh well with this idea of weight inclusivity. Weight inclusivity, sometimes called a weight neutral approach, allows us to separate the idea that weight and health are equal. We can be healthy without losing weight, and people can be healthy at any size.
Healthy at any size. I mean, I think that this is something, this has probably not been something that many people feel like they have experienced, especially, say, in their interactions with, it can be physicians, it can be people in their community, it can be family members. I mean, like, we do a lot of moralizing around the idea of weight. How is that a part of this, what's in our heads in this conversation?
Yeah, we swim in this water of diet culture where the idea is that we must always be thinner or healthier or eat cleaner.
And it's our responsibility to do these things.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure for like doing it yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'd like to just kind of take that pressure gauge off a little bit. Like, let's release the pressure of those external voices and think about, like, what do I need? What feels good in my body that I have right now?
And it's such a different way to think about the experience of eating too, because like you said, and we're going to talk about it in a minute, we're going to get to like, how do you practice this? But you're looking for different information from your body to tell you a little bit more about what it wants to eat at any given moment, which is unusual. Okay, so now let's, people have probably heard of BMI, so body mass index. And I know that there has now been some arguments, the clinical evidence, like clinical arguments being made against using BMI as a metric for health. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, BMI was never meant to measure any one individual person's health. It was simply a mathematical equation to compare height and weight in white European soldiers in the 1800s.
Yeah.
So it's really unfortunate that it's become really entrenched in our society, our access to healthcare, what healthcare we can receive. and also this like moralization of our own bodies and how we judge other people's bodies.
Because it also now might be something you go to the doctor's office and your BMI is taken and you're put into a category, and then there's an automatic step that says you need to lose weight.
Yeah, and the BMI does not account for body composition, individual genetics, individual metabolism, and it's been shown to be really inaccurate across other races other than white people.
How are doctors doctors and dietitians approach weight inclusivity as an approach? How accepted is this? And is this a conversation a person could have with their doctor about, for example, is it safe for me? Because some of this is also, there are some real aspects of, I don't even know how to say it. It's not necessarily the body size means anything, but so what's the conversation to have with your doctor?
Yeah, I mean, things have changed in a lot. I've been a dietitian for over 16 years, and I was trained in like the heyday of the obesity epidemic. And it has changed a lot, and it's still not where I'd love to have it be. So, and I'm not going to deny that there are really real times where weight loss may make a difference in someone's health or quality of life. And if you're wanting to try something different and have a more weight neutral approach to health, I hope it is a conversation with your doctor.
And you are still, and I know in your practice, because you work a lot with pregnant women and postpartum women. So, you know, people who have very real nutritional needs and concerns around what they're eating, and maybe even things like, I don't know if it's weight management, but like gestational diabetes. So this is something that does belong in the conversation about health. And again, it's not a you can now eat whatever you want kind of a approach, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the cool things about intuitive eating is there are a lot of studies, and when people practice intuitive eating, they actually eat pretty good, right? Like they get all their nutritional needs met.
Yeah.
And specifically in pregnancy, people do tend to stay within those gestational weight gain guidelines as they practice intuitive eating. But there's no pressure to do it.
So it's also, again, it's about rewiring. So let's practice some rewiring, because it is currently, you know, it's lunchtime, I'm getting hungry. If I am taking a intuitive approach to my hunger, what do I do now? I'm hungry.
Yeah, so I like to think of hunger as like a person standing on your doorstep who is going to start knocking lightly. Hunger is polite and is knocking lightly. And if you ignore it or don't hear it or hope that it goes away, hunger will start knocking more loudly until you eventually open the door and respond. So let's say you opened the door when hunger was knocking politely. That's a sign of intuitive eating. You're going to respond to your body cues and say, oh, hello, hunger. Thank you for being here.
Hello, hunger. Thank you for being there. Okay.
It's a conversation with your body. And the more that you do this, you're going to build body trust. So your body knows when I tell you I'm hungry, you're going to feed me.
Yeah, that's probably one of the first things, right? Is not ignoring your hunger signals, but instead saying, oh, okay. And then what about like asking, like understanding what it is that my body is asking for, craving? Like, is there, what's a right word? Is there a right word? Should we not use the word right?
I like to think of it as like a curious invitation. And you can ask yourself, what am I in the mood for? What sounds good? What do I have on hand? Or what do I have access to? How hungry am I? And how do I want to feel after I eat? Sometimes you want a big hearty meal. Other times you want something a little bit more light. Sometimes you might want something warm. Other times you might want something cool and crunchy and crisp.
So it's about giving yourself that space. Now, and this is actually, this makes sense to me because this is a lot of how I go. I have never trained in intuitive eating. But, you know, as everyone dealing with struggles with food in general and thinking about food over the years, my approach is very much like, I start with questioning, do I want something warm? Am I asking for something juicy, etc.? Like just what sounds good. Sometimes I'm at the grocery store, I'll scan the vegetables and just say what's jumping out at me right now, and then kind of following that. But of course, that sounds like I'm grocery shopping every night. What do you do about shopping?
Yeah, so if you're practicing more intuitive eating and trying to balance this with grocery shopping, I'd encourage you to think about what are the foods that you want to have around? What sounds good? And of course, intuitive eating, we do incorporate some gentle nutrition. So we are going to think about including fruits and vegetables and whole grains and a variety of protein. And think about what are the things that you like? What are the things that you can add to foods that bring more joy, more pleasure? like adding something crunchy or adding a squeeze of lemon onto something that might otherwise be boring.
Ways to just sort of like augment your meal, make it a more pleasure. So first and foremost, we're not thinking about weight loss as the goal. We are instead attuning to this relationship with our body and a more body acceptance, and then continuing to understand the relationship with health. You know, I mean, still like going to doctors. We're not dropping the entire medical community. Lots of information in this conversation in a too short amount of time. And on a topic that I think strikes home for most of us, on the screen, we have some resources you can check out for more information. Emily, final thoughts for folks on at home about how to move forward in this? New year, new you.
Yeah, I would invite folks to just think about if they want to try something different. If intuitive eating feels really hard or scary, that's okay. Learning it is a new practice, and it might feel like writing with your non-dominant hand for a little bit, but there are people out there to help guide you. There are certified intuitive eating counselors here in Vermont.
I was going to ask you, so how does one to learn how to do it? Is it something you can work on your own? You can use those online resources, and then there are certified counselors?
Yeah, some people can do it on their own, and they may read a few things or hear a few things, and it's like a light switch, and they're like, I got it. And for other people, it might be more of a challenge, and it would be helpful to have somebody hold their hand, help them navigate through that process.
Give you a little bit. I was going to ask you about how long it takes. So it sounds like depends on the individual.
It really depends. Some people, like I said, can read something and they're like, got it. And other people, it may take a few months to a year.
Okay. Any best practices for you that you feel like you want to leave people with?
I'd like to just remind people that intuitive eating is not another diet. There are 10 guiding principles, but they are not rules that you have to follow. They're things that you can use how you want.
Okay. Tell us what is one of the most important ones.
I'd say rejecting the diet mentality.
Ooh, rejecting the diet. Okay, just go right there for diet culture and be like, let it go. Yeah, elaborate. Tell me a tiny bit more.
So yeah, rejecting the diet mentality is accepting that weight and health are not equal.
Accepting weight and health are not equal. Really
Focusing
important.
on health just for the sake of it feeling good, rather than it being something that you're using for weight loss.
Okay.
So like exercise, right? When you're able to recognize that exercise is good for your mental health, it's a fun way to socialize, it gives you a boost of energy, you're more likely to enjoy it and stick with it in the long run, rather than feeling like I have to burn X amount of calories.
This is fantastic. Yeah, so this is great. So this is a whole new way, reframing, and I'm so pleased that you have been here today to help us out with that. As always, Vermont, thank you for learning and exploring with me today, and thanks to the team that makes Across the Fence possible. I'm Amy Finley. This is Across the Fence. Come back and let's learn and explore again tomorrow.